All right, you can fill your tank with two types of fuel. One costs $4 per gallon, and the other costs $5 per gallon. You only have $40 you can spend on fuel, and you know you need more than 7 gallons of the fuel total for your travels. Graph a system of inequalities that shows the possible ways you could purchase fuel. I'm going to ask you to pause as usual and try and sort out the inequalities on your own. Remember to think about whether any of your variables could be negative and see if there are any implied restrictions or implied inequalities in this. So assuming you've paused and you're back, I'll go ahead and set this up the way I would. I'm going to create a table. Okay, and I will start off with thinking about what my inequalities are relating to. So I know that I only have $40 I can spend on fuel. So I can spend up to $40, but I can't spend more. I could spend 40. So this means I have a less than or equal to inequality here. So less than. So there we go. I've got the inequality symbol I need. Less than or equal to $40. I'll go ahead and put the dollar symbol in there to make sense. So this is the money inequality that I will be doing. So I've got something I've got to put together to make a money inequality. Now, I also need more than 7 gallons. So more than 7 gallons is greater than 7 gallons. All right, this is going to be my fuel in gallons inequality. So I'll have a fuel inequality and a money inequality. So let's take a look. So our variables are the number of gallons of fuel because we don't know how much fuel of each type we're going to use. So I'm going to use X for the first type of fuel and Y for the other type of fuel. So I now know that I'm going to have X plus Y is greater than 7. That's one of my inequalities. Cool. Now, I immediately also consider, can I have negative amounts of fuel? No, I can't. I could have 0 of one of the types, but I can't have negatives. So X has to be greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to get that inequality symbol here. There it is. So X has to be greater than 0, and Y has to be as well. Okay, so I now have 3 inequalities. I still have to get my money inequality. So let's look at what goes into it. Well, we know there's going to be some number of gallons of X fuel and some number of gallons of Y fuel, but that's not going to get me the money. The money is going to be how much each gallon costs. So if I spend $4 on every gallon of X, that's 4 times X. I spend $5 on every gallon of Y, that's 5Y. These are ways, these products are expressions of how much money I spend on fuel on the first fuel and on the second fuel. The total has to be less than or equal to 40. Okay, so now I can put in that final inequality. 4x plus 5y is going to be less than or equal to $40. I'll get rid of the dollar symbol for right now. Okay, so now you have to do the graphing of all of these. And there are 4 inequalities. And our solution is just going to be the overlap of all 4 inequalities. So the easy ones, again, are x is greater than or equal to 0 and y is greater than or equal to 0. These tell us that we're only really going to be working in the first quadrant when we're graphing. So let's go ahead and plot those. So I go into the fuel problem. So x is greater than or equal to 0, which means the y-axis is included in everything to the right. So there's that inequality. And y is greater than or equal to 0. means the x-axis is included and everything above it. So the overlap is this first quadrant of our coordinate plane. We call that quadrant 1 using a Roman numeral I. All right. So let's work out the graphing of our other two inequalities, which I've already typed in here for you. So this is the simpler one to deal with. We're going to treat it as if it was an equation for graphing a boundary line first. It's going to be a dashed line. Our first step is to find our intercepts. And as you probably recognize that this is a very simple standard form structure here. So that's 1x and 1y. So if I treat it as a line, I'm going to get an x-intercept and a y-intercept. Okay, so my x-intercept is going to be what x is when y is 0. So if y is 0, x in our line form is going to be 7. So 7 comma 0 is my x-intercept. And my y-intercept is going to be the opposite, 0 comma 7. Okay, so those are my intercepts. I'll go ahead and make them empty holes, since they are not actually allowed parts of the inequality. And then I draw a line through it. I draw x plus y equals 7, and then I make that a dashed line. And there you have the dashed line. And now I've got to consider which side is going to be shaded. So the side that's going to be shaded, I'll use 0, 0. So plus 0 is greater than 7. Is 0 greater than 7? It is not greater than 7. So this side loses. 0, 0 does not get invited to the party. We're going to be shading this side for this inequality. And there you have it. And now we have three inequalities overlapping. And at this point, just this area is allowed as a system, as a solution. But we have one more inequality to deal with, and that's the money one. So 4x plus 5y is less than or equal to 40. It's going to be a solid line. I'll be solid dots for my intercepts. So my first step is to find my x and y intercepts. And my x-intercept is when y is 0. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to figure out what x is, because when I make y 0, the 5y goes away. So 4x equals 40. Divide both sides by 4. X will equal 10. So I have an x-intercept at 10 comma 0. And then I make I make x equal to 0, so I can get my y-intercept somewhere on the y-axis, where everywhere x is 0. 5y equals 40. I divide both sides by 5. I'm going to get 8. Y equals 8. So 0 comma 8. So there are my 2 points for that inequality. I'll go ahead and label them as well. And I'm going to draw a line through them. And the line is going to be the line version of this inequality. 4x plus 5y equals 40. Now I've got to check and see which side is going to be shaded. The side that's going to be shaded will be defined by whether or not my test point works. So I'm going to use 0, 0 again. So 4 times 0 plus 5 times 0 equals 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 40? It is. So 0, 0 does get invited to the party. So I'm going to shade in this direction for this one. So there we go. And now I have this little zone, which is my zone for my inequality. And I can organize everything into one nice, tidy inequality. I'm going to just to show what the actual solution zone looks like, not because this is how you would do it on paper. This is just what my solution zone will look like. I ignore the stuff that's not solutions. And this shows you a little bit about what you can do on Desmos as well. So I'm going to go right up here. Make all of these restrictions. And now I'll turn all this stuff off so it's not muddying up the waters for us. And all four inequalities overlap in this nice little area right here. Okay, and that's the solution. We've got a dashed line here, solid, 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 and the possible numbers of gallons of each type of fuel, the X type of fuel and the Y type of fuel, are combinations of XY points that are somewhere along these lines and in the shaded area, but not along this dashed line. And that is our solution for our system of inequalities.